Hi, I'm Bill Patton with Visual Training for Tennis, and it's my pleasure to be having a conversation with Ryan Hanrahan
Yeah.
from Sydney, Australia,
Thanks, Bill.
and he's older than he looks. Ryan, you and I got connected via Between the White Lines Summit. I
Yeah.
think let's first talk a little bit about that, and then what I'd like to do is talk about visual training for tennis as a way to discuss coaches and how they approach their continuing education. Between the White Lines, how did you get connected with that?
Well, first of all, I got to basically know Mark Wylam and Ramon Osa, and
Hmm.
I did a bit of work with them, talked them through with my ideas. They shared their ideas back to me. And then before you know it, probably half a year down the track, Mark Jeffrey wants to talk to me, and then he asked me to be a presenter after we had one Zoom call because he was interested in what I gave him, like my thought processes and my ideas and how I'm going to implement them. So basically that simple. I said yes, and then went from there.
And that's a really important thing to do, to say yes and just go forward into things, into the wild blue yonder, right? Into the great unknown. So, what was your thrust of your talk for the Between the White Lines Summit?
It might be a bit political or whatever, but I want to make tennis great again.
Hmm.
And not that the game is not great. Like the game is great, and that's the point. Is trying to get people to know about it, play it in a way when they can keep progressing through pathways simply wherever they come from. And it doesn't just have to be, progressing to the number one spot in the world. If people achieve, they want to keep playing, and everyone wants to achieve. Just to have different levels of achievement. And I think everyone's competitive. I don't believe that there's anyone that isn't competitive. I think people hide that if they don't win, they feel a bit nervous or they think they're going to get embarrassed or they look a bit silly or whatever it is. And then they say, I'll just play for fun. But deep down, if they achieved and got the results, they're going to keep wanting more. I want to try to get that kind of spirit into tennis more of a whole.
I think it's great because the approach that I take with people who are brand new on the court is wherever they are, I want them to leave a little bit better. Sometimes I think we have grandiose visions of what success means, but really it just means being incrementally better today than you were yesterday. One of the really key things that I believe is that in the first lesson, a beginner ought to be able to rally in the very first lesson and maybe within the first 10 minutes. But then here's the interesting thing. You might say, rally, that sounds impossible. But
Yeah,
in reality, I can define a rally any way I like. And
that's
so
right.
what I start with is tossing a few balls over the net. And then we choke up with the racket and take one step back. And we will have a really super mini rally, the miniest of all mini rallies, and we'll keep and then we get the ball going back and forth 10 times in a row. Then I ask my student, what are we doing? And they say, rallying. I'm like, yeah, we're playing tennis right now. So that's shocking to them. They don't expect that they're going to be having a rally of some type. And then we'll move back to the service line and dwell there, and they might have to learn a few things before we can rally 10 shots from there. I
Yeah.
like to do that before doing anything technical. Tennis is a pretty simple game of catching and tossing the ball on your strings back and forth to the other people. And if you always remember that, then when everything else falls apart, you've got something to rely on.
Yeah, I actually work off a similar philosophy, and that was part of that was one of my four tips on the Between the White Lines presentation, and that was to get people playing matches earlier, and that's built around rallies. And
Mm-hmm.
so I do it with getting them how to self-feed themselves in a simple model that's stable, without any variables of ball bounce or speed or, got to chase the ball, where they just drop it, feed it straight and smooth. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter if it goes over the net, as long as they go straight and smooth, then you can teach them how to hit it over the net. And if you hit it to them, all I want them to do is touch the ball. If they miss the ball, they go chase it, touch it, then pick it up and feed it back. But when you touch it, then you swing. Don't swing unless you touch it, basically. There's no point swinging really if the ball's going to go past you. So if they learn how to just to connect the strings to the racket and swing it back, the rally starts pretty much within the first lesson. And yeah, to define the rally in different ways. It can be a shorter rally, it can be smaller size court, lower net, and and even I can get them rallying between each other with a game called Pirate Ship, where they're hitting 4 or 5 balls over one at a time over the net, and you got 2 people on each side of the net. You got a time limit of about 3 minutes, and whoever can get the most balls to the other side wins. So basically, a tennis ball is like a cannonball, the net's like the ocean, and each side of the net's a pirate ship. And they're not really hitting it back and forth to each other, but they get the concept of, one person on the other side of the net, and I'm trying to hit it over there, and they're trying to hit it back over here. And they realize if they rush and they miss, it doesn't really work, but they take their time, get it in, they get more shots over than rushing. But they can run to the ball fast and come back fast, but when they take their time for the stroke. So that's, I agree with you 100% there.
Yeah, I mean, and whatever we can do to modify things and create success and little hurdles for them to jump over, and then they gain confidence, and then we take them to the next level of difficulty, and then that's not as daunting of a challenge. Are you ready to shift gears and talk a little bit more about the coaching industry and the state of where we are with tennis coaches and their willingness to learn? So, I sent you a list of different profiles of coaches, and I think the very best coaches in the world are the ones who are curious about everything. They're always ready to learn something new. And I'll give you an example. I was at Indian Wells, and I was taking some videos of a pro player's serve, and I looked at it a little bit, and I thought I saw a little something that could be improved. And so I just happened to know that coach, and I sort of, I humbly submitted to him, hey, I have this video of your player, and I think that if she does this, she's going to gain, a few more miles an hour and some accuracy and blah, blah, blah. Do you want to see it? Right.
Oh, yeah. What did they
say? He said, sure. So I sent it to him. Right. And he worked with her on that, and she improved her serve. And I thought that's pretty awesome. And I think most great coaches at that level are willing to hear almost anybody's opinion, because if they're in a position where if they leave something on the table, they could be out of their job.
That's right. Yeah.
It behooves them to at least listen. I mean, they don't have to accept what you're saying. I didn't expect him to accept what I was saying necessarily. Having interviewed some of the greatest coaches of all time, like the Dick Goulds and the Bob Brett, who recently heard that Bob is actually fairly ill. Some of these coaches, the Vic Bradens, and Don Hensons, they're always learning. They're always learning, and they have this constant appreciation and respect for everyone else and what they bring to the table.
Yeah, and I think bringing it back to the player's point of view, the 3 players that are the best at constantly learning are the 3 best in the world, good chance ever. The Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, they're just constantly learning how to get to the next level. And I think it helps them pushing each other, but it's because they don't kind of rest and go, oh yeah, well I'm good, and I'll just keep doing it this way. They add another dynamic to trying to win.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great point. And so it's like if they stay static, they're going to fall behind. They know it for sure. One of the most amazing videos you can find on YouTube is Nadal essentially taking a beginner level lesson on serving from a serve expert that Uncle Tony brought in to retool. And it's really amazing to watch Rafa taking a beginner lesson on serving. Hold it like this. Here's your basic swing path, starting all new. And this was just before he began serving in the 130s for the first time.
Oh, wow. So when was this?
The timing of that, I'm not exactly sure.
I'll have to get
it's in the last 10 years, I do believe. That I think since then he's gone away from trying to serve in the 130s a lot. His velocity is more overall, and he's using heavier spin. His serve is more of a weapon and a better setup for the +1 shot, and he's playing faster points by far. I mean, the fact that he annihilated Djokovic in the 0-4 at the French, I think So he had,
It
it
was
was
two
like
thirds to one
50,
third, I think.
yeah, it was like 56-27, and I don't think I'm overstating it. It's right in that neighborhood.
Yeah, that's pretty
So
much almost exactly what it was, I think. Yeah.
it was
I
right in
think it's
there.
57-28.
Okay, good. There, I knew there were some crooked numbers. That's all I remember. Is some,
Yeah.
it was 50 something to 20 something. But
Djokovic
doubling
didn't
him
he win
up.
the other two? He won the 5-8 and the 9 plus Djokovic, I think.
Yeah, I
Just
wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. But I mean, I would think that Djokovic may have put his sole focus on trying to win the longer points.
I think
But let me finish this. But I think it came as a bit of a surprise tactic. Nadal was going to come so heavily to try to win the points so
yeah.
quickly.
Yeah, Djokovic was definitely surprised in that match because he was. I think the statistic became worse because Djokovic was. I don't think he was playing his game, and that like the sixth love was still 45 minutes. That's like a crazy long sixth love. He just had to get a few juices, but he kind of went away from his game and tried to win it too quickly. I think he tried to win the 1-4 too quickly, mainly through drop shots, and he didn't get
Mm.
himself back into the momentum and actually work out what the best 1-4 is. He just kept reverting back to the drop shot. And that's what I think anyway in my mind.
Right. Okay. Let me pose a question to you because there are two other subgroups of coaches. There are coaches who know some stuff and they have strongly held incomplete opinions,
Yeah.
and there are coaches that are largely ignorant and or holding on to almost completely conventional wisdom of 25 years ago. Which do you think is a larger group?
I don't know. Um,
Just take a
I,
stab at it. Give me a
I'll
wild
say
guess.
possibly the first one.
What is it? What is it about tennis professionals, or maybe this is all coaches in the world? We seem to want to rise to the level of expert. In the pre-show, you said gods of tennis, right? And it's
Yeah.
not far off. It's not far off. For whatever reason, coaches want to get respect, and they want to have achieved a certain level of expertise and be thought of as sort of the expert on something. How do people shift out of that, do you think?
I think it comes down to the mindset. Like you shouldn't become a coach to be famous or well known or to get results even. You are getting results, but you're there to help the player get results rather than your own directly. And if you're willing to keep getting the player to the next level and keep helping and learn more, you want to keep pushing because you want to keep helping them get to that level and get that level faster.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It has to do with mindset. And see, that's why I reference the greatest coaches, is they're just always hungry for more knowledge. I've written books, and for whatever reason, some people ascribe a higher level of expertise to someone who has written a book. And then other people seem to want to attack that person.
Yeah, it's a bit of
So it's a really interesting. So over here you have the people who fawn and they become fans, and they almost believe that what's written in the book supersedes anything that they know because somebody wrote a book, and so it must be the smartest thing ever, right?
yeah.
And then over here you have the people who go, well, that book was pretty stupid and it wasn't. One of my favorite reviews is that book was not so innovative. And I'm like, well, I wasn't trying to be innovative per se. I was trying to be informative and helpful,
Yeah,
sort of educate people, but I
that's right.
wasn't necessarily trying to break new grounds that no one had ever broken before. So it's really interesting, though, how people respond to that. There's two different people. There's Bill Patton, this guy that people know and we can just talk and have a beer. And then there's Bill Patton, the author, and that guy is more valuable. I want to kind of shift the subject too,
Yeah,
because now, I started this conversation and you saw that on one of the coaching forums on Facebook. I'm not going to name it, but I posed an interesting situation where there's some pictures of Andre Agassi, and he's looking ahead of the target. He's looking ahead of the contact point, and there are two different things that people do. So people who are pure dextral do one thing, and people who are cross dextral do another. And the definitions of those goes like this. If you're right eye and right-handed, then you're pure dextral. Left eye, left-handed, pure dextral. So, and then if it's crossed, then it's cross dextral. So I'm left eye dominant. The, the camera's turned around, so it looks like I'm pointing to not my left eye right now, probably.
It looks left on my side.
Okay, left eye dominant, right-handed. I'm cross dextral. So now, people who are cross dextral, the better strategy from everything that I've seen, and I've tested this out in my laboratory for years now, is for them to focus on the ball from the bounce into their strings. Now, some people will argue, yes, but you can't see the ball hit the strings. Fine, you're correct. You cannot see the ball hit the strings, but you can see it go into the strings. Okay, so it's a little bit of word salad on that one. Now, pure dextral people seem to be better served by focusing on a place halfway between the bounce of the ball and the travel of the ball into their strings. And they will actually use the periphery of their vision, even though it's still in a pretty tight band in front of them, it's still crossing the periphery, because your focal point is only 3 degrees wide. So anything outside of that 3 degrees is periphery by definition. But then to post this and bring it up and try to explain to people the difference between pure dextral and cross dextral, less than 5% of the people are actually curious, what does it mean? They have opinions.
Yeah.
They have a lot of opinions, but they have almost no curiosity about what's the difference between pure dextral and cross dextral. Can we talk about it? Will you tell me what it is? I don't know what it is. So
yeah, they don't want to. I think one thing is they don't want to look silly that they don't know what it is.
So that's an interesting thing, right? And so, I guess my whole life is about looking silly, because there's so much I don't know and will never know. And I'm about to publish the 4th edition of Visual Training for Tennis, and it is such a massive field. The way to try to understand vision, it's a crazy big field without a lot of lines drawn. There's so much that is not understood about how the brain and vision interacts and creates performance.
Yeah, and it plays a massive role, I think.
Yeah, and so just being able to try to understand it. There's a gal, Dr. Cheryl Calder, and she's one of the top researchers in the world on vision. And she's tested 100,000 athletes and found no two with identical strengths and weaknesses in their visual capabilities.
Wow.
Yeah, and this is something that people really ought to know. And so, but trying to get the message out to people who think that there are finite skills that people can have. Well, I do this, I teach this. And I'm like, oh, that's all you teach? Is that the only solution? Does everyone see the same? And so if you see me asking the question, does everyone see the same? Then I'm exposing ignorance at that moment. And I'm still waiting for an answer, actually, from some people.
I guess my question would be, is it the same eye that looks at the same spot, whether it's a forehand or a backhand?
It is believed. So approximately 80% of your seeing comes through your dominant eye. So the part of the issue is that your dominant eye can't see past the bridge of your nose. So I used to struggle on backhands because my non-dominant eye, I was relying on too much. But when I learned to turn my head forward to see the ball so I could sight it well with my dominant eye, then that helped out a lot. So it seems so. Some people say both of their eyes are dominant. I'm like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. So You do have a dominant eye. Approximately 80% of your vision comes from your dominant eye. Some people more, some people less. And and then your non-dominant eye fills in detail, depth perception, colors, um, other other things that bring more richness to the visual experience.
So maybe it's an advantage to probably, as a general rule, correct me if I'm wrong, to be open stance or semi stance for either or.
I asked Mark Kovacs this question because now he's somebody I would listen to at all times. It can have a bearing on your stance, yes, because the answer would probably take 20 full minutes. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. I mean, because otherwise, what are you going to do? Strain your neck to make your head, go to a certain place. So your vision will affect your contact point. It will affect and your gripping to some degree, and your stances that you take. And I'm a believer that everyone needs to be able to play out of every stance, because there will be a situation where you need to.
The other thing I found, and no one's really addressed it, and I haven't seen you address it either, but you might know something about it, was the way Federer actually looks at the ball. And you could probably put your knowledge into what I say.
Okay.
But I read an article, and I don't know who it was by, or I know it was about 10 years ago. And he doesn't actually watch the ball onto the strings or see the ball hit the strings. He watches the strings go in line with the ball. And hence he has that head tilt, not just on the backhand, but on the forehand. So he has his contact point's a little bit further out than most. And that's also why he's relaxed in his face, because he's watching that racket go in line with the ball and he doesn't have to turn his head. So, but he could still be using one of those cross-dextral or pure dextral focus points, but I'm not sure. Maybe you could work out which one it is.
I think that's interesting, and I think there's nothing contradictory to what you're saying to what I'm saying, but it's a different perspective. So I'll have to think about that. It fits in. And so when you were saying that, it made me think about how sometimes I see the ball through the back of my strings.
Yeah, I don't think he really sees the ball.
So no, I mean, I at times, because I'm looking out at, I'm looking at my contact point.
Yeah.
I will see the ball through the back of my strings. Now, it's not in focus, and I'm not necessarily seeing it at the moment that it hits the strings.
Yeah.
Because I can't claim that, but I do see that action happening, the ball coming in and out, right? So, so yeah, I don't find that contradictory. So his attention is mainly on that moment, is maybe a better way to capture that, to explain what you're saying. So I would love to see that article. So
I'm trying to find
now
it.
That's going to bother me, but thanks for that. So, and no, this is exactly what we need. We need to be able to have conversations. Wow, Ryan, now you told me something I'd never heard before, and now I need to investigate. But
yeah, and that's how we learn as a team.
Right, and so I think it really plays into the cross-dextral strategy. I mean, because cross-dextral means that you're looking for that moment, whereas pure dextral means that you're looking for a place ahead of the moment.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of pictures of Fed, with eyes trained right at the moment of contact, and Serena Williams' eyes well ahead of contact. The thing that became a curiosity to me was that you would have magazines where it would show Federer with a green circle around, and it was like an angel, he'd have a halo over his head because he was doing it right. And then you'd have another player and there'd be a red X, don't do this, right? And then But then they're picturing a Grand Slam champion. And I'm like, that's curious. I mean, I would love to be a one-time Grand Slam champion, as many people would, right? I mean, so that's curious that this person who's won a slam gets a red X next to their thing. So that's bad teaching, in my opinion. When people say a strategy that has worked for someone who's won a slam is not the way.
The other way to look at it, that is, kind of giving them some credit as well. Not everyone, not even Federer, like he got to 20 slams, Nadal's 20 slams, but not everything's done on purpose that he does.
Yes.
So maybe the way that one slam person looked at the ball is not done by design, but that just kind of came as along on the ride to win the slam. So maybe they might have a point, maybe they don't. The point is that you don't just discredit it.
Well, absolutely. If we take another example, Andy Roddick, okay, whose chief traits were his drive, his athleticism, especially his strength. Maybe one of the physically strongest tennis players that there's been. Very interesting and probably ineffective technique on his backhand for sure.
Yeah.
And his forehand might have been more effective if he could have flattened the ball out a little bit more. For a period of time, it was one of the more dominant shots in the game. But then people figured out that it didn't have a lot of variety. So they knew it was coming from it. And then, the very idiosyncratic serve motion, which really that was the thing that saved him from his backhand for a long time. And then even then, though, people began to be able to return his serve. Anyone saying, oh, I really want to hit my backhand like Andy Roddick is maybe a little misguided, because that wasn't. And so he had this stroke that he was married to, and it was intentional or unintentional, but he still got to number one in the world and won a slam. And so there were other traits that overrode that. And then here's another one, Fabrice Santoro. Fabrice Santoro might be one of the most gifted athletes visually ever, because in order to make his blenderized game work, his Ginsu knife game, he needed to have top-notch visual skills in order to be able to find those contact points and contact the ball in so many different ways so as to throw people off, right? And, didn't he get, wasn't he not a favorite of the French Federation?
Not a favorite.
He was not a favorite. And so he then had to kind of carve his own path, because he didn't play a pure game that people found they took pride in, right? No one came forward and said, I taught him how to do
that. Bit embarrassed. But actually, I think some of the stuff that he did would be very effective in some of the one-dimensional, hit it as hard as he can to the corner type players.
Oh, he drove people nuts. He was a hard person to beat, and he was solidly inside the top 50 for a long time. So
I think Berdych could have done with some of that.
If more tennis pros become more curious about more things and are willing to engage with more people at higher levels, same levels, and lower levels, our game is going to become more healthy, because we need better training. We need better understanding of all things about how to teach tennis, so that more people can succeed at tennis, which is, where we started this conversation, is that our ultimate goal is player success and matriculation up the ladder. And my thing is, I believe that visual skills are the number one reason why people get frustrated with tennis quickly and drop out, and B, never move past a level where they can actually deal with faster shots hit with a wider variety of spins. So in the US, we have the NTRP system, and that's a 4.5 level. Those levels at 4, 5, and above are less and less populated every year. So we really need to get back to advancing people to higher levels so they can be true good club players.
That's right. Yeah, the faster you progress any level, the more they want to play, but also the more they tell other people that, especially that haven't played before, just to get into it and they can improve fast. I think that holds tennis back. The fact that it can take a little bit longer to learn faster. And so I think if we learn better ways to improve people from beginner to playing a point, playing a rally, not just learning how to hit a good forehand, one shot off here, one shot there, and then don't know how to play a match, but actually playing a rally, the faster they can do that, it's going to become infectious, like a ripple effect, and just people are just going to keep playing. And we're not going to believe what hit us because it's just going to be what it should have been. I think that's what made it big in the first place, the fact that people just played it, and that's with less coaching. So I don't think coaching helps in terms of you're the gods of tennis, but coaching does help if you deliver in a way that you're going to help players get better faster, rather than do it for your own glory.
Big thing, the athlete-centered coach.
I just put it in front of you.
It's going funny because of my background.
Yeah, it has to stay in front of you.
So the athlete-centered coach. So this is 400 pages, 125,000 words, and so 30 years of experience. And the evolution of my coaching has gotten to the point where the actual learning of the tennis has a lot less to do with me. It has a lot more to do with the student. And so what I'm seeking to do is be athlete-centered to the point where I'm trying to discover how do they learn, what are their goals, what do they want to do, what do they want to do, where are they, what skills and tools and abilities do they have, where do they want to go, and how do we get them there. And
what's the fastest route?
What's the fastest route? But it's more about how they pursue it, helping them unlock their expertise rather than me being the one with the expertise. I don't have magic anything. What they have the magic is I help them discover their magic. That's the way to say it.
It's really up to them. So you're guiding them with their feedback, whether it's through voice, but sometimes visuals. That can be how happy they are, how sad they are, or kind of what grabs them. But once you get the feedback and you keep guiding and keeping them on the path to getting better, and they realize they're actually in control, and you're just kind of giving them what they need, and they're giving you what you need. So you're working as a team, and they're getting to that where they want to be faster, and you got to make sure that you're getting them, like you said, where they want to be, not where you want them to be. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. Like, you can get them to where you want to be, and they can be really good, but they're not happy with where they are, and they're not going to stay there. They're going to leave and try something else, or get to a level that's not even where they really can get to because they just weren't happy.
Yeah, and I think we can wrap this up shortly because I think what I want to do is apply that to coaching, and I'm trying to influence more coaches to do a better job of understanding how people learn better, especially the visual skills, because it's quite obvious that there's not enough understanding about that. And your eyes are your most important body part when it comes to tennis. I mean, there are people with no legs who play tennis. Ryan, it's been great to talk to you. Any final thoughts as we wrap this up?
I think I'd like to probably continue the conversation into more detail and see if we can get some coaches on board and those willing to learn.
Well, and I think what we can do, let's do this. We can promote a webinar around this time. So I'm going to let you find an audience in your time zone, and then we'll put together a webinar for interested coaches. And it doesn't matter if there's only one person who comes. We will give our all to that one. But if we get a handful or 20 or 100, that would be pretty awesome. And we'll do a lot of Q&A and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, I'm in a position where I really want to give things out for free, but then also to kind of bait the hook so that people will want to take the course, because I do have a full 2-hour course that is, it's pretty much everything I know about this topic. And there is a lot to know. So anyway, all right. So thank you for the conversation, Ryan. And I guess that's it for now. So, but we'll be in touch to get a webinar going for the folks in your side of the world.
Thanks, Bill. Sounds good. Catch you then.
All right. Take care. All right. Bye, Ryan.